Welcome back to another week of MLB DFS previews here at FSi. Just looking at the small 5-game main slate for Monday, July 8th here, and only one pitcher on the board to get super excited about, and it's going to be Chris Sale against Arizona. SP2 is going to be a lot tougher to narrow down and get correct. There's not really much of anything to get super excited about. However, there are a lot of bad offenses on this slate, which does help justify quite a bit of these pitchers who might be on a larger slate just kind of fall through the cracks. So let's just kind of get started. We got the sheet. We'll pull that up here in a little bit. But Chris Sale, he's going to be your SP1, especially in cash games. Just play him. Don't even think too much about him. Yeah, the 10.5 price tag is a bit scary. Anytime you get 10.5 or higher on any pitcher, but he's just been so phenomenal, and the floor that he provides is just absolutely incredible. The strikeout rate that he has, he's facing off against Arizona, who admittedly is a much better team against left-handed pitching than they are against righties. But when you look at the rest of the pitching options on this slate, you gotta put Chris Sale as your SP1 and just not even think too much about it. After that, like I mentioned, it gets really dicey. Gavin Williams, he returned from injury and had his first start last week. It did not go well. First couple innings did, and then the fourth inning hit, and he just kind of fell apart really quick against the White Sox. He's got a matchup against Detroit, not an offense that you should be absolutely terrified about. And Williams, he was a guy going into the season that, there was a lot of excitement with him. He was one of the higher prospects in the Cleveland organization in terms of pitching. And so I don't look too much into this one start. Now, granted, his minor league rehab starts did not look very good either, albeit, a couple of starts that he had towards the end there where he looked much better right before his call up back into the bigs. But still, I think that given the matchup and the upside, the prospect, the pedigree, whatever you want to say, that this guy brought into the season, I think that he's still a justifiable option here on the slate where, again, there's really not many other options to get excited about. Abbott, I am going to rank Abbott ahead of Williams here. You're going to see it on the sheet shortly, but it's more so about the matchup. Colorado struggles mightily, much like Miami. They struggle mightily against left-handed pitching, and I think Colorado coming into Cincinnati, even though it is a small ballpark, I think it's going to hurt them a little bit. They just spent like a week or more in Coors, that had a really long homestand, and historically when Colorado gets out of Coors after like a long extend, like at least 2 series worth of Coors, that first game out of there gets a little funky for them. They seem to perform a little bit weaker. Players have come out saying that the ball, it flies a little bit differently. It's a little bit more different to track out of the pitcher's hand with the lower altitudes and all that kind of stuff. So I think with Colorado, 1, being outside of Coors, and 2, being the first game outside of Coors, 3, just being a bad offense in general, especially against left-handed pitching, I'm going to go with Abbott here. Is kind of my favorite mid-tier option. Am I excited about it? Absolutely not. Will I listen to somebody making the argument that it should be Williams or it should be a guy like Daniel or Paddock? Yeah, sure. I think that it's just kind of like a jumbled, muddy mess once you get down here. We're going to go with Paddock as my third-ranked guy facing off against the White Sox. Now, he was on the 15-day IL. I kind of mentioned, in my videos, I don't like playing pitchers coming off the IL, but it was a 15-day. It's not like he was gone for 30 or 60 days, a really extended period of time. So if I had to guess, I say maybe he gets up to 65, 70 pitches, but that limited pitch count is kind of already put into the price. We were paying $8.7K for him last time out, so we're getting a pretty steep discount in a great matchup facing off against the White Sox. Looking at the surface numbers, the stats do not look good at all, but he does have some underlying numbers that kind of point to him having just a little bit of bad luck over the course of the season. Regardless, again, am I excited? No, but 7.5K for a guy who's going to be facing off against the White Sox, you're going to have some interest in there. And then Daniel is going to be the last guy in there. Toughest matchup of the bunch, facing off against Texas, and that's kind of it. Going into the cheap tier, Diaz. This is going to be his major league debut for Arizona, facing off against Atlanta. Now, Diaz, he is this boom bust kind of prospect. He's, I think, the second or third ranked pitcher prospect in the entire Arizona organization. His fastball is got some heat to it. He can touch 98, 99 miles an hour on it. He's got a strikeout rate at 32% in the minors, as you can see, but it is very alarming, his 13% walk rate. He's got a tough matchup facing off against Atlanta. It's not as tough as, the Atlanta that we've seen in previous years, but regardless, you don't want to be having a 13% walk rate to anybody. So can he get there? Absolutely. What's his price tag? $6K. So he's going to need 15 DK points, according to me. I like to do the 2.5x. So 6 to 15, 2.5. I want him to can he get me 15 DK points? Absolutely. If I'm getting a guy with a 32% strikeout rate, I think he's more than capable of getting you 15 DK points, especially if he does allow, a couple of earned runs here. But the walk rate, man, it's really concerning. And I just wanted to highlight that. While I do think he's one of my favorite pitchers in this cheap salary tier, there's definitely a bust to him as well. It's not only just the walk rate; it's the matchup facing off against Atlanta, and it's his MLB debut. It's the nerves, they're real. It's gonna happen. So big boom, big bust. Gonna be excited to see and watch him pitch here. After that, it's gonna be great on Montero. Montero, I just kind of want to highlight in that he's 4K. We've been getting a lot of min price pitchers here as of late, but we are getting a min price pitcher who's capable of going 80, 90 pitches into the game. He has a long leash to him. The concern is that he's facing off against Cleveland, one of the top offenses in baseball, and they don't really strike out at all. So while he has had some saving grace to him with the strikeout rate that he has had, he's not really going to be able to sustain that strikeout rate against Cleveland in this matchup. But 4K, if he can get you 10 DK points, he's going to be paying off his salary for sure. Can he get you 10 DK points? Yeah, absolutely. And if he does that, he's really going to open up everything in terms of the bats. 4.4K remaining for your bats if you go with Montero, and you can still get Chris Sale in there. But again, are any of these guys safe? No. It's baseball. Nobody's really safe. But is there anybody that you should have confidence in as locking in your SP2? No, not really. And should you be scared about being, underweight on any of these guys? No, I really don't think so. This is pretty ugly. Heading towards the bats, Minnesota, Cincinnati, and Cleveland are going to be my top bats here on the board. Minnesota facing off against Flexen. I just love picking on Flexen and just how many home runs that this guy allows. Correa, he is day to day. He took a pitch off the hand, I want to say I saw that highlight. So just make sure that he is in. If he is out, obviously it does, bump them down a little bit, but you got guys still like Miranda. He had a hit in 12 straight at bats. He's been absolutely on a tear. His price tag has jumped significantly because of it, so it's going to be a little bit harder to get that big stack of Minnesota. But Miranda, he's right up there. Buxton, he's been blowing the cover off the ball. Averaging almost hitting 432 over his past 10 games with 4 home runs, and even the potential. It's slight, but potential of a stolen base there as well. Kepler, he's going to be, batting in the 5-6 slot. Larnack, I really want to like Larnack, but man, he's been really struggling in terms of the bat recently. So overall as a team, I think they're given, the pitchers on the board and their matchup and everything else, they're playing on the road, meaning they're getting the guaranteed 9 innings of bats. It's another boost to the Minnesota side in this matchup. Cincinnati, really like them. Again, pay attention to some of the injuries that they do have. Fraley, it says he's out. He could be returning tomorrow on Monday. He wasn't out on paternity leave. Paternity leave, you get 3 days. This one, he was on a family family medical emergency. So it's at least 3, but it's got to be fewer than 7. So he has the potential of coming back here on Monday. If so, I'm going to be really interested in him in this matchup as a nice lefty. But if he's not in, well, don't play him. Candelario, he's another lefty, facing off against a righty in Feltner, who struggles mightily against lefties. But Candelario, man, talking about guys who just can't seem to be hitting the ball as of late. He's hitting 146 in his past 10 games. It's been really ugly for him. He's been striking out quite a bit. He's been striking out at a near 30% clip in those 10 games, but Feltner is not a guy who I should be, really scared about at striking out. My batters, De La Cruz, Steer, those are going to be your first 2 starting points. India, he's slowed it down a little bit, but you got guys like Benson, another lefty. The only issue with Benson is that he bats in like the 8 spot. So maybe you do a wraparound stack if you go here with Cincinnati. Cleveland, like them as well. GPP, Atlanta. I mean, I kind of already hinted and alluded to that with Diaz being such like a boom or bust pitcher. Atlanta, Kelenic leading off. His price tag still kind of remains the same, but he's been doing very well in that leadoff spot for them, followed by Texas. Colorado, they're more of like a leftover team. I don't really have too much interest in Colorado, but they are still playing in that very small ballpark in Cincinnati, so there's always the chance of upside with them there. In terms of cheap, give me Detroit and maybe get me a little bit of the Chicago White Sox, but primarily Detroit, just facing off against Gavin Williams. Like I said, this guy was a higher prospect, and there was like excitement with him coming into the season. I know he pitched last year, but like coming into this season, there was excitement that he was going to, take that next step and everything. But the minor league rehab starts didn't look too good until, a little bit closer to the end of those minor league starts, but then, return to the majors looked really ugly once again. But I really don't think you can go too wrong with a lot of these guys. I'm a huge fan of Veerling. I don't know why, but I think that this guy is a phenomenal baseball player, and I got some high hopes for him going into the second half of the season. But really, it's Riley Green. The only issue with Detroit and like stacking them, or even just doing like a one-off with Riley Green, is that there's really nobody else in the lineup that other opposing pitchers are going to be terrified of. So just walk them, right? Like, it's just kind of that simple. Pitchers don't seem to do that. He's only got 5 walks in his past 10 games, but still, I do think that Detroit is my favorite cheap stack on the day. And then obviously leverage is going to be Arizona because everybody's going to be playing Chris Sale. So go with them as your leverage stack. So hopefully this was able to guide you in the right direction. Appreciate it as always, all of the views that we are getting. Please hit that subscribe button. Good luck in all of your contests, and I'll be back again on Tuesday for another preview video. See ya.